Hello there and welcome back to my channel, or if this is the first video of mine you are seeing, then welcome. I want to sit down and try Rude Cosmetics for the very first time. I've never tried this brand. I do follow them over on Instagram, and I know that might have been a few months ago they launched their Peanuts collection. Now it was quite a large collection, there was a lot to it, but I found a few pieces of it at TJ Maxx. They had quite a lot of the palettes available there and the face palette, so I picked up both palettes and the face palette. First we have the Cool Tone eyeshadow palette. It just has this really cute little artwork, and then this is like a little sleeve, and then it has the same artwork underneath, and this is the Cool Toned one. Really beautiful neutral palette. I love shades like this. If you've watched my videos in the past, you know that I am a huge neutral eyeshadow palette lover, so these palettes were definitely right up my alley. And then we have the Warm Tone, which there again has this cute little sleeve over it, which I am going to keep because I think that's just cute. And then here you have the Warm Toned eyeshadow palette. Now, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to do 6 different looks with these eyeshadow palettes, and for each look, I'm just going to go across the rows. That way I know I'm using all of the shades in each palette, because I like to use every single shade before I give my final thoughts, and I like to do that in one video, so for future reference, this is the only video you'd have to see if you were interested in these palettes at all. And the last thing is the little face palette, and I just love how they come in these cute little sleeves, and then you have the same artwork. Then you have 2 different blush shades, a highlighter and a bronzer. I thought that was really cute. So I'll be including that as well, like a demo of that in my video. And as always, I'm going to be including live swatches of all of these palettes. I will have timestamps listed for you below in case you want to skip around. But if all of that sounds interesting, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we're going to start with the Cool Toned eyeshadow palette, and it just comes in this little sleeve just like that. And you open it up, and that's what it looks like. I love the pan embossing, so cute. Just so adorable. So let's start with our first row here. Now that shade is kind of like my skin tone, so I don't expect that one to show up too much. Alright, we'll do the next 2. These are some beautiful shimmers. They're really smooth. Second row. Might pick up a little more of that shade. I feel like I didn't pick up too much. Ooh. Now that's pretty. Last 2 on this row. The shade Hopscotch, I don't know, that might not show up on me either because it looks, again, kind of similar to my skin tone. I can see it some. Okay, we got the last row here. It's like a topper shade. Let me build up that one a little bit more. Okay. And the final 2 shades. And here is the entire cool tone palette swatched out. Now, to me, I don't really see this as being completely cool tone. To me, there are a lot of warm tone shades in this palette and some that lean a little more on the neutral side. So just be mindful of that if you were looking at these palettes. And I will say these shades are very light, so there's not a lot of depth here in these palettes. Now, for me personally, I don't mind that because that's usually what I prefer on a regular basis, but I like to bring that up. Of course, you can see it here too, but it will not be a palette that would work for everybody. And I'm going to include a clip right here so you can see how these shades look in natural lighting. I just stepped right out on my porch so you can see them just like that. Okay, next we have the warm toned eyeshadow palette, and this one comes in a little sleeve just like the other one. Then when we open this one up, I have these shades right here. Really beautiful. So, let's get to swatching. Now there again, that shade's kind of like my skin tone, so I don't expect that one to show up all that much. Okay, we got the next two. Ooh, now that's a pretty shade. Okay, let's go into the next row. Pretty. Last two on this row. It's kind of the same with the other palette. These mattes are very light. The last row. Okay, then the last two shades in the palette. See if I can build that shade up a little bit. And there you have that entire palette swatched out. Same thing, these are very, very light matte shades. There's not a lot of depth when it comes to those shades, so just be mindful of that if you were looking at these palettes. But the shimmers feel so smooth, they apply really easily, they have really beautiful pigmentation. So like the other palette, I'm going to insert a clip right here showing this palette in natural lighting so you can see it just like that as well. Okay, and last but not least is the face palette, and this also has, well, if I can get it up, a cute little sleeve over it too. Then when you open it up, we have a highlighter, two different blush shades, and a bronzer. And this highlighter is absolutely filled with glitter. So if you do not like glitter, this is definitely not a face palette for you. I'll come back and do the bronzer next. I'm not the best at pinky swatches, so. Ooh. Beautiful. And then I'll swatch the bronzer. I'm not good at pinky swatches, so I figured I'd just come back and pick up the bronzer shades separately. And that's a pretty face palette. And that highlighter shade is really pigmented. If you could use this on the eyes, which I'm not sure if you can or not, I guess you could, since I think it's a vegan formula, that would be pretty as an eye topper shade. And I'm going to include a clip right here, there again, of me showing these shades in natural lighting. I like to include that in my videos too, especially since I had someone ask about that one time, so I like to include these as well. Okay, we're going to start with the Cool Tone palette today, and as I said in my intro, I'm just going to go row by row, so that way I know I'm using every single shade in the palette. So we're first going to start with this row right here, and I'm going to take the shade Youngin on a blending brush from e.l.f. Okay, then I'm going to start running that right into my crease. I've never used Rude Cosmetics before, so this will be my first time trying their formula out. And as I'm filming this first look, I have yet to do my swatches. So I'm kind of going into their formula a little blindly. It's really soft. Has really soft pigment. Which, for me, I would prefer, but I know some people would rather have instant pigment right away, but I would rather build up my shadows, so I'm not going in with too much too soon. And see, for me, that's the perfect color for my crease. It's really soft, and it's easy to blend out. And I'm going to take the shade Wishy-Washy on the same brush. This shade is just like my skin tone, so I'm just going to take that around the edges of that first shade I'm working with just a little bit. It pretty much blended out on its own. I didn't really have to do this step, but I just like to take this around so I can at least use this shade too, even though this is mostly my skin tone. For this first row, those are the only two matte shades, so I'm going to take the shade Joe Cool using that same blending brush. Okay, I didn't spray my brush. I'm just going in with it just the way it is, just to see, because I just swatched this shade a little bit and it does look really smooth, so I figured it would go on pretty well on its own. It's really pretty. It is applying so well. I might have picked up a little too much on my brush, but I can easily probably blend that out, because so far the formula seems really good. Okay, I just wiped all that pigment off on my little silicone cleaner, and I'm just going to go around the edges of that shimmer shade. I'm going to keep this simple, so I'm going to go in with the shade Unlucky using that same brush. Okay, I picked up a smaller amount of that shade, so let's see how that looks. Now, you can get more pigment, I'm assuming, probably from a more densely packed brush, but I just really wanted to use this more fluffy brush. I love the way this brush applies shimmer shades, and that's really pretty. And there is the finished eye look. That was so easy to work with, so easy to blend. This is the type of makeup that I really truly love, so I'm just going to do the same look on the other eye because I'm going to be doing the other two rows tomorrow, like one on each eye, so I just want to do one look today. I think I'm just going to do some mascara today since this is more of a really, neutral look, so I'll do all that and I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. Okay, I'm just using my Too Faced, the mascara primer, and then the Give Beauty mascara. Please ignore my under eyes. I think I used way too much powder and they look really bad. They look really dry, so I'm not too happy with how they look, so we're just going to pretend that didn't happen. So I'm going to go in with the shade Home Run on a small angled brush from e.l.f. And I'm just going to run that along my lower lash line. It's probably not a good idea to do a sparkly shade on my lower lash line today because they look so bad. I think the concealer I'm using is the culprit because when I just used I said a while ago I might have put too much powder, but actually I think it was the concealer I use is just kind of getting a little older. It's not performing the way it used to, so I think I'm going to have to part with that. because when I just had on my under eye corrector, it looked fine. And speaking of my under eye corrector, I hit pan. This is the e.l.f. Putty Color Correcting Eye Brightener, and I hit pan on it today, so that's so exciting. I do really like that corrector, so that's why I really believe that it's the concealer causing me trouble. Okay, and here is look number 1, all done. Okay, I've zoomed you out a little bit because I'm going in with this Peanuts face palette, and it just looks like this right here. We have 2 beautiful blushes, a highlighter, and a bronzer. I just love the pan embossings, like the little heart, the paw print. That's just so cute. I'm first going to pick up the bronzer shade. There's no names on this, so I'm just going to pick up that shade right here. And I'm going to be using my favorite Betsy Johnson brush. Unfortunately, this was from a holiday set, so you can't get this anymore, which I wish you could because it's one of my favorites. I don't know how deep this might be. I haven't swatched it yet, so I just picked up a really small amount, which it looks like it's pretty light. I don't know if there's another face palette, like if there's another one that might be more for deeper skin tones, because I don't see this working for anybody other than maybe fair light. I don't even know if you have a medium skin tone if you'd be able to make this show up. Let's see if I can build it up just a little bit. I don't really need to for my skin tone, but I just want to see if you can build it up. So you can build it up some. So you could continue building it up. I don't know. So I'm thinking maybe, yeah, fair to light. Maybe some medium complexions could use this, but if you have a darker skin tone, I don't see this working for you, unfortunately. I don't know if they have another face palette. This was the only one that I saw at TJ Maxx, but maybe they had another one on their website that would be for deeper skin tones. If they do, then I will pop it up here somewhere on the screen if that's true. So I'm going to go in with the highlighter shade. I'm just going to take this more angled brush. I'm going to go in with that. This, I can already say, is glitter, is straight up glitter. So if you don't like glitter, you will not like this, but I don't mind glitter on my face. I really love glitter, but some people really don't like that. Yeah, it's just, can you see that? It's straight up glitter. So you won't like that if you don't like glitter. But it might make, I don't know if you could use this on the eyes. It probably would make a really pretty eyeshadow topper if you didn't want it on your face. But it's pretty. I like it, but it's glitter. It is just straight up glitter. Let me zoom in over here. You might can see it a little better on this side. It's glitter. Okay, there's 2 different blushes. Honestly, even though the palette I used today says cool tone, it looks very warm toned on me, but now I have a warm undertone, so I feel like sometimes cool tones can pull more warm or neutral on me, so I'm probably not the best representation of that palette, but I don't really see this look I created today as being a cool tone look, so just be mindful of that if you were looking at these palettes. So I guess I'll try both of the blushes. I'm going to take this deeper blush shade, and I'm just going to keep that on this portion, and then we'll try that other shade. I don't know how pigmented these are. I have never used Rude Cosmetics before. Ooh. Well, that is pretty. I just picked up a small amount because I just looking at it looked like it would be pigmented. Tap into it a little bit more and see. Yeah, you can build it up. Yeah. I'm trying to keep it just on this outer portion. Then I'm going to take this shade right here on that same brush. And we'll see. Let's put this one right here. Okay. I just wanted to see, maybe put this one by itself so you can see. Now, I didn't bring this one all the way in because I plan on putting this shade here, but you can see that tone versus this is a little more warm. They're both really pretty. These look like, I haven't swatched them, but they look like matte blushes, but of course you're seeing all that sparkle. And the foundation I'm wearing is really glowy. I'm wearing the Glowy Super, let's see. Yeah, Glowy Super Skin Foundation in the shade 2. So it's a glowy foundation. I'm just going to take some more of that lighter shade and just go right in here. And then go in with the other shade. Put that more on this outer portion. These are really beautiful blushes. It's a nice face palette, it's just limited with who it's going to work for, so that is a con. As far as the pros, it's really, easy to work with, beautiful tones. Well, so far it looks pretty. Like, I didn't struggle with blending them out or anything like that. They build up pretty well, I will say. So you could probably take them even more pigmented if you want. But this is all I'm going to do, and I'm going to wear this palette, well, of course the eyeshadow and all that for the rest of the day, and when I come back and do my looks tomorrow, I'll update you on how the face palette wore. I'm going to start with the shade Candy on a blending brush from e.l.f. And I'm going to run that right into my crease. It's a pretty shade. And I will say that yesterday I wore these eyeshadows all day long, as well as that face palette. It was a very long day yesterday, and everyone looked amazing at the end of the day. There was no muddying, creasing, fading. Everything looked beautiful. So I'm really happy to see that. That same brush, I'm going to take the shade Hopscotch. This is another shade that's kind of similar to my skin tone in this palette, so I'm just going to go around the edges of this shade just to ensure it's blended out nicely. Of course, these blend out really easily, really much on their own. You don't even have to do this if you don't want to. Okay, I'm going to take the shade Zigzag on a concealer brush from e.l.f. And I'm going to place that on this outer portion of my lid. And I'm also going to place that on the beginning portion too. I think we'll do a little halo eye. I haven't done one of those in a while. I'm just so fond of my other eyeshadow application method. And place that shade on the beginning portion. And I didn't spray my brush, so this is how it's applying on its own. Of course, I am going to get some sparkle fallout from that, but that's one reason why I love to do my eyes first, so it's not an issue. Then I'm going back in with that first brush I had, and I'm going to just lightly go around the edges of those shimmer. Or that shimmer, there's only one. Okay, and then on that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Friendship, and I will be spraying my brush with some setting spray this time. I want to see how they perform when they're sprayed with setting spray, because I haven't done that yet with this palette, and I just want to see. Of course, this shade is more like a satin shade. It's not a full-on shimmer. It's much more smoother. Okay, I'm just going to do some mascara and maybe a false eyelash, I'm not sure yet, and I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. Okay, I decided just to do mascara again. I feel like this week might be the perfect week to just do mascara looks, since a lot of my looks in other videos I do use false eyelashes, so I think it's nice to have some just mascara looks. So, I'm wearing the Too Faced Better Than Sex, the Foreplay Mascara Primer, and then the One Size Fantasize Mascara. I'm going to take the shade Sunday on a small angled brush from e.l.f. and I'm going to run that all along my lower lash line. And here is look number 2, all done. I'm going to take the shade Charles on a blending brush from e.l.f. Now I know in the swatches these shades were pretty soft, but I still went in with a smaller amount, because this probably still has a little bit more pigment than the matte shade I used over here in the crease. I will say this palette is really easy to work with. I think it's a perfect palette for everyday use because you can just easily get a simple eye look. It doesn't take that much effort to blend out. I think it's definitely a good beginner-friendly palette too. Then I'm going to take the shade Big Brother on a concealer brush from e.l.f. And I'm going to place that on this outer corner, and then I'll place it on the inner corner as well. We're going to do another halo eye over here to match the other one. And go in this inner portion too. That's a really pretty shade. Really pigmented too. But the shimmer shades are really impactful in this palette, in both of the palettes. And then I'm going back in with that first blending brush that I used and just going to lightly go around the edges of those shimmer shades. Okay, then I'm going to pick up the shade Ha 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 on that same brush, and I will be spraying my brush with some setting spray. And place that right here in the very center of my lid. That's really pretty. Okay, I'm just going to do some mascara on this side, and I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. I'm going to take the shade Pigpen on a small angled brush from e.l.f. And this shade I'm just going to keep on this outer portion of my lower lash line. And wipe my brush off some, had a little too much pigment. And then on that same brush I'm going to take the shade Yes Ma'am. And this shade I'm going to place right here on the beginning portion of that lower lash line, meeting up with that Pigpen shade. And here is look number 3, all done. Okay, we're moving on to the warm toned eyeshadow palette today. Looks just like this. So I'm going to start with the shade Jump Rope on a blending brush from e.l.f. And that I'm going to start applying right into my crease. Stamp in a little bit more pigment. Press it in first, and then I'll go blend around it. You know, I will say these palettes are so easy to work with. They blend out easily, they just work together nicely. And I really like that about them, because sometimes you just want to pull out a palette that you know you can get a really simple, easy, quick eye look, especially if you know maybe you don't have a lot of time in the morning, or you're running late and you just want to throw in a little something on your eye. Maybe you want to do a little something more than a bronzer in the crease. This is a perfect palette to do so with. Using that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Beagle. I just love that there's a little Snoopy imprint. That's so cute. And then I'm just going to take that shade and go around the edge of that Jump Rope shade just to make sure it's all blended out. I'm just going to keep the same brush. I'm going in with the shade Blockhead. And that shade I'm just going to stamp on this outer portion of my lid. This doesn't look like a really deep shade, so I don't expect it to do too much or adding too much depth to the look, but I just want to place a matte shade out here. You know, I really would love to try more from Rude Cosmetics, because I just love how simple this palette is. I believe this company, I don't know if they still do, I want to say they had a palette with a unicorn on it. If they do, I might have to pick that up. And just to keep it simple, we're going to take the same brush and go in with the shade Penny Loafer. Since that matte shade on the outer corner is so soft, I just want to go in with a fluffy brush like this and just kind of pat that more shimmer shade right here on the beginning portion of my lid. And picked a little bit more up on that brush. I just want to keep it really soft. This is definitely a big difference from last week when I was filming for my Blend Bunny video, because that's a colorful palette and then we have a palette like this. Okay, I'm just going to do some mascara on that side and I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. Okay, the mascara that I'm using is the Too Faced Mascara Primer and then the Give Beauty Mascara. That's all I'm wearing today. I'm going to take the shade Bronze Trophy on a small angled brush from e.l.f. And that shade I'm going to run all the way across my lower lash line. Okay, now here is the first look with the warm palette, but the fourth look overall. I'm going to start with the shade Hide and Seek on a blending brush from e.l.f. And I'm going to start running that into my crease. On that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Football. And that shade is going to go right out here, in this outer portion. Just stamping that in. On the same brush, I'm going in with the shade Happiness. And we're just going to just tap that on this beginning portion of my lid. Now that shade's really sparkly, so of course I'm getting fallout from that, but that's one reason why I love to do my eyes first. So I don't personally mind the fallout, but I do like to mention that. But I also didn't spray my brush. I just went in with the shade just by itself. I'm just going to put some mascara on this side and I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. I'm going to take the shade Bossy on a small angled brush from e.l.f. And that shade I'm just going to leave on this outer portion of my lower lash line. I have one more shade on this row to use. Then on that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Daydream. And that shade is going to go on the beginning portion. And here is look number 2 with the warm palette and look number 5 overall. I'm going to start with the shade Sweet Babboo on a blending brush from e.l.f. And then I'm going to run that right into my crease. This might be a shade that I have to end up stamping into my crease because it's really, really soft. So let's try that. Using that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Chuck. And that shade I'm just going to stamp on this outer half of my lid. This is such an easy palette to work with. I just can't believe how quickly I've been able to do all of these looks for this week I've been filming. It's just so easy, and I really love that about it. On that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Fussbudget. And that shade, I'm just going to lightly tap on this beginning portion of my crease. Now you could definitely, that's a really pigmented shimmer shade, so you can really easily build that up to have intense pigment. But, you know me, I like the soft. I really love these soft everyday eye looks. They're some of my very favorites. Of course, I mean, even when I wear a color, I still make them as soft as possible because that's just what I love. Okay, I'm just going to do my other eye off camera and some mascara, and I'll be right back with the lower lash line. I'm going to take the shade Good Grief on a small angled brush from e.l.f. And that shade is going to go just right here on this outer corner. Or the outer half of my lower lash line, I should say. On that same brush, I'm going in with the shade Peanut Gallery. And then that I'm going to place right here on the beginning portion of my lower lash line. And here is look number 3 with the warm palette and look number 6 overall. And there you have 6 different eye looks using both of these palettes. I've also made sure to include a demo with using the face palette as well. And now that I've used every single shade in all 3 of these, I feel like now I can finally give my final thoughts on each of them. I'm just going to start here with the eyeshadow palettes because they are 2 very beautiful eyeshadow palettes, and I did not struggle at all with either of these. They are so easy to blend, so easy to work with. Every single look I created, I feel like, was just exactly what I look for in a neutral palette. Very simple, just perfect for every day. And I feel like these are some palettes that I would recommend for someone who is either a beginner at makeup, because I really don't see how you cannot mess up blending with these 2 eyeshadow palettes. They're that easy to work with. But I would also recommend them to anyone who maybe wants a little neutral palette that is so easy to do an eye look with that they can just put that on right quick and go out the door. I think these are perfect for that as well. And the face palette, equally just as nice. I've been wearing this for pretty much almost every single time I've used one of these palettes on my eyes. I'm not wearing this palette right here in my outro because I did want to use some cream products today, but the rest of the days I've been wearing this and it's really nice quality. There is no fading with it or anything like that. I did make sure I inserted a clip. It might have been on maybe look 2 of the Cool Tone palette, where I included a little check-in at the end of the day showing you all the products and how they wore by the end of the day, and I didn't struggle with anything. I feel like it looked just as beautiful by then as it did when I first applied it. Now, with anything, I want to point out any pros or cons that I see in a palette. The con that I see with these 3 is that if you have a deeper skin tone, these are not going to work for you. I feel like all 3 of them will only work for someone with a fair to light, maybe light medium complexion, because these shades are just so soft. Even some of the deeper shades in the palettes are still incredibly soft. There's not a huge amount of pigment to them. The shimmer shades have pigment, but the mattes do not go deep enough for someone with a deeper skin tone to really enjoy these palettes. And the face palette, this is the only one. There's not a second one. That would have been cute to include a second one with some deeper options for those with deeper skin tones. But this is the only one. So that to me is the biggest con with these palettes. Now, if you were just looking at them from a formula perspective, they're fine, they're beautiful, they lasted all day. But I do hope that my video has been helpful for anyone who has been looking at this collection and who maybe considered purchasing it. I know it's been out for a couple of months, but it's starting to show up, I guess, in TJ Maxx stores because that's where I found mine, and I just wanted to pick it up and give it a shot. I feel like at this price point, because I don't remember them being that expensive each, so at that price point I feel like they're excellent quality. Now this video will be going up on Friday, so that's when you'll be watching it. So this coming Monday will be Christmas Day. I won't be having a video that day because that's a day I just want to spend time with my family and just kind of relax and enjoy the holidays. So I do want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope your day is absolutely amazing, and I'll be seeing you again next Friday. Bye!